So I'm going to talk a little bit about exercise because it's coming out in mainstream literature that it's absolutely essential that we exercise. But we've covered today food and nutrition, and we have left out physical activity, and physical activity is key to health, along with other principles. There are four really that are really important. The first is food, second is exercise, third is love, fourth is spirituality, and there is a fifth factor. Obviously some people die and we don't know what the cause is at all. So we're human beings, we don't know it all. So I'm going to talk about physical activity today, and hopefully that will help you to grasp something that I'm pushing out in the world is called Choibo. It's a system for exercise, and I'll explain to you why I'm really passionate about it. I exercise for maybe, been training now for nearly 30 years. I started when I was 8 and I'm 37 now. So I've got a lot of experience, and hopefully I've brought all that experience inside of Choibo to be a superior system for long-term health. So it's not for quick gains, it's for long-term health, longevity and wellness. So, you know, the new biology of exercise, yes, we've been exercising for maybe 10 years really well. More science is coming out, and that science needs to be used so that we are exercising the right way and not the wrong way. So we need to follow science, not all of science. Sometimes, you know, we can go a little left or right, but principles of science we need to follow. So exercise affects you on a cellular level and on a mechanical level. How you move, exercise affects you, but also it goes to a deeper level, which is a cellular level. So obviously you have your DNA structure and also your human cells. So the first thing I want you to think about or pay attention to is the kinetic chain. The kinetic chain are the three main systems that we have within our bodies that allow us to move. The skeleton system, the muscular system, and the central nervous system. The picture in the middle is a very muscular guy, obviously. That is not healthy on the kinetic chain to be that muscular. I will explain a little bit why later on. So exercise affects all three components, some ways a little differently. For instance, I'll talk a little later, the skeleton is more impacted, bone density is more impacted with high impact training. High impact training on the muscular system doesn't stimulate the muscular system the same way, and the central nervous system again has different needs from exercise. So in order that you get the best out of your exercise, it's best to understand the kinetic chain a little bit deeper. The first thing to understand is we have three planes of movement. We have sagittal, it's called coronal there, but some other scientists call it frontal, and transverse. Without being complex in science, the thing to understand is first we can move forwards and backwards. We can also move to the side, and we can also rotate. Those planes of motion are the three planes of motion that an exercise program should use for long-term health, because that's how you move. So the other thing to understand is proprioception after movement. Proprioception is this. Wherever you are in life, you have an experience, and you draw on that experience to respond. So you have eyes that bring in, through photoreceptors, incoming information, and that moves towards your central nervous system for you to make a muscular response. The same thing that you have ears. Your hearing is wired into your stomach, or your vestibular system rather is wired into your core. So if you have an exercise program that challenges your balance, for instance, you know, kicking or punching, which is one of the main components from Choibo, it's much more challenging on the central nervous system. So to get the best out of your exercise program to experience long-term health and wellness, really, if you are, I feel, intelligent, then the system or exercise program you're choosing to use should be continually and gradually progressive, but science says in all three planes of motion. It should challenge proprioception and human movement in all three planes of motion. So for instance, if you were doing a punch, just punching out in front of you, there's no rotational fashion, no rotational movement. So a rotational movement brings in more planes of motion, of movement. So techniques or exercises that you use should challenge all three planes of motion, and also proprioception. You also have smell as well, which is obviously a sense, and I suppose you could use some nice smelling salts or something in an exercise room or studio, but that's not been brought in as yet. So, which is healthier? Most of you, or people today that have some study in exercise, will know the four most talked about areas of exercise are aerobic training, anaerobic training, flexibility training. Now yoga is becoming a huge movement. It's brilliant for health. And strength and resistance training, which would include, in my eyes, Pilates as well. So there's four parts to exercise that are talked about today in science that need to be incorporated into a complete system for health, so that you get the best out of the exercise you're choosing to use in your life. So one thing important to remember, the quality of the exercise program you participate in will influence the quality of your long-term health. If you're doing things the wrong way, then when you're 45, 50, that will negatively impact your skeleton system or your muscular system, and I'll show you why really shortly. So you must use exercises or techniques that have a strong foundation to them in science, so that you are really looking after your long-term health, not quick gains. I'm not into quick gains or exercising for 2 weeks to get results. You need to do it for life. That way you'll get the most benefits. So I'll really explain these so you really understand them well. But they're all of great benefit. So all four are of benefit in the right amounts and the right way. So exercise scientists for years have been using the SAID principle, which is specific adaptation imposed demands. It's still abundant in the exercise training world. Most training schools talk about this principle, but it's really important the general public and everybody understands this and why it should be used in a good system to get the best results for children, middle-aged people and adults, and elderly people or elders too, because they should be exercising too. So, and interestingly enough, some of the most recent research shows in the 9th decade of life, when you're 90 years of age, exercising produces good muscular responses. So how old do we need to start aging? I question that. So the SAID principle is good to understand. So you adapt to necessity. If you don't exercise, your body becomes weak. If you exercise, it can become stronger if you're doing it the right way. So it's very important to understand you adapt to necessity. Too much stress and your body can break down, and I'll explain that too. So I have used the SAID principle in Choibo. I've been exercising for years. When I was a little younger, I did a lot of tournaments and hard training. Now I'm older and more experienced. I don't do that, so I'm training for wellness. I've brought in these principles into Choibo, and I'm passionate about Choibo and getting it out to the world because I believe it's a brilliant system for holistic health. If anyone wants to contact me through the internet, then I'll always respond to inquiries about Choibo, so that people really understand the power of it, really, and how it can transform their health and life. So training for optimum health is different to training for competitions. Competitions are about winning. Also, really important to understand, if you play football, I know some of the athletes are amazing, but the purpose of it is fast, kick a ball, run this way, run that way. Is compulsive movement. It's not training for health. Okay, the athletes are very fit and they have to use different strength training to make the body stronger so it lasts, because it's highly competitive, and they're at the peak of their game. If one injury in there, they're out for months. So exercising for wellness or health is very different to sports training. There is an element of competition in Choibo because I want to motivate and bring the best out of people. So there are pattern competitions, and we put up some competitions to motivate people to become the best they can be, but not at the detriment of their own health. So looking at stress and understanding stress, there should be a clear understanding now, with so much medical research coming out supporting stress and how that is massively impacting disease. So much stress in the workplace, and how we need to help people that are stressed out, and hopefully I'll help you to do that today. So